Testing 1, 2. Good morning, everyone. Oh, come on now. This is a monarch kind of day. I know y'all got more energy than that. Good morning. And welcome to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. I'm Bob Kendrick. I'm the president here for the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, and on behalf of our entire team at the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum and our board of directors, I welcome you here to the Field of Legends on what is truly a milestone occasion as we commemorate the 100th anniversary of the very first Negro Leagues World Series. Took place in 1924 between Andrew Rube Foster's Negro National League champion, the Kansas City Monarchs, and Ed Bolden, who had formed a rival league in 1923 called the Eastern Colored League, and their entrant was the Hilldale Club, aka the Hilldale Daisies, out of Darby, Pennsylvania. And as some of you may know, we want more people to know, it would be our Kansas City Monarchs who would bring home Kansas City's first major professional sports team championship in 1924 when they captured that first World Series. And I oftentimes joke half-heartedly, because there is some truth to this. If you know anything about a nonprofit organization, we will indeed make up an anniversary if we think we can raise some money around that anniversary. Yeah, no, absolutely, Bob. You know this as well as anyone. But again, the 100th anniversary of this milestone event is a legitimate cause for celebration. Kansas City has known championship athletic teams for quite some time. We just celebrated another Super Bowl title coming to Kansas City. 2015, 1985, our Kansas City Royals were crowned world champions. But that championship legacy begins right here in this community with the great Kansas City Monarchs. And that team in 1924 had two future Hall of Famers in Wilbur Bullet Rogan and the great Jose Mendez. All total, there were 5 Hall of Fame players playing in that series. The great Judy Johnson, who is right here at shortstop on the Field of Legends here at the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. The great Louis Santop, nicknamed him Big Bertha. He was a great catcher. He had an arm named and inspired by the German artillery weapon. Yeah, so you know he had a gun behind home plate. And of course, the legendary Raleigh Biz Mackey, who would teach a young Roy Campanella how to catch. And Biz Mackey is widely regarded in the world of those who really dive deep into baseball history as perhaps the greatest defensive catcher this sport has ever seen. And the Monarchs would win a thrilling 9-game series, 5-4. One game was called a tie because of darkness. Mayor, we hadn't brought those lights in that the Monarchs established in 1930. They weren't there yet. And they called that game because of darkness, but we were excited to, number one, help people understand that this World Series came about because, again, in many ways, it was sending a message to Major League Baseball about the validity of this Negro Leagues that had been established in 1920, initially with 8 teams forming the Negro National League, and then in 23, Ed Bolden brought in 6 additional teams. By 24, the Eastern Colored League added 2 more teams, and then you had your first Negro League World Series. So in many ways, this legitimized the Negro Leagues in the eyes of those who were following Major League Baseball, because this was happening at the exact same time. And the black press was thrilled about this. And honestly, Rube Foster's notion was that they would crown a champion and then they would play the major league champion, but Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landers wanted nothing to do with that. And so that never transpired. So today is indeed cause for celebration, and as customary, we have some wonderful people that I want you to hear from this morning, beginning with the leader of our great city. And you see him. I don't know if this city has had a greater ambassador, and his leadership, I think, has been seen during not only good times but also difficult times, as we all witnessed, you know, even in the midst of the joy of another Super Bowl championship, that senseless act of violence that took place. But it takes great leaders to continue to galvanize us and bring us together. And we're very fortunate, folks, that we have one of the greatest leaders, not just in this city, but around this country. Please join me in welcoming the Honorable Mayor Quentin Lucas.
Well, thank you all so much. It is an honor to be here. And in case you are wondering, if ever you have had a tough day, tough hour, tough week, or tough month, there is not a better place to be than the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, not a better person to see than Bob Kendrick, to give you perspective on life today, life a century ago, and more than anything, much like our Negro Leagues baseball players, managers, coaches, fans, and others, how you can persevere in times of challenge to ensure that you can find any number of triumphs in your own life and be an inspiration for your community. So I thank you, Bob, and all of you for letting me come back, as I always like to say, home. For those who may not know my story and relationship with this team, no, I have never been a particularly talented baseball player. I like to consider myself a talented baseball fan. But I still remember when I was a very, very young man, before this museum was built, and when all of us had the chance to have those stories of bumping into Buck O'Neil, which I'm proud to say I had the opportunity to do. I remember my mother had me here in the 18th and Vine area. There was a bookshop right across the street. And the clerk was saying, now one day they're going to have a bunch of museums right here. And I remember looking and thinking, what? No, I don't know about that. Now, you know, we had the apartments, we had the call, but I didn't know that we would see something like this. And more amazing than the brick and mortar that you see at this facility are the exceptional stories that are told here in Kansas City and around the country. I am one who personally loves to play a game of how often can you see Bob Kendrick at 2 a.m. on a TV show? You turn on MLB TV or ESPN2. I'm like, wait, I know that voice from somewhere. That's Bob Kendrick sharing the story of not just the Negro Leagues baseball, not just Kansas City, but of America and our history. A few things that I'm going to make sure I read for once, because Kiana wanted to make sure I actually said the right stuff. First of all, it is important that we celebrate, and we celebrate our champions. We've had a lot of opportunities recently to talk about and think about champions in Kansas City, and removing some of the painful memories. Think about the joy you had when the Super Bowl was won. Think about the joy you had when the Royals won the World Series in '15 and in '85. And think back to that being the thing in a community. Think about the euphoria that people in Kansas City in 1924 had the opportunity to experience. And no, it didn't erase the challenges. It didn't erase any of the issues that people faced, but it gave people some joy. It gave people something to love. It gave people something to believe in. If we could see our stars out there being the best in the world, what does that mean as inspiration for me, for my family, and for my community? So we tell stories about baseball, but as you all know, we're really telling stories about life. I'm proud to be here today to help kick off the start of an exciting year-long centennial celebration. And this is going to be something unlike one we've ever seen. We'll look at, of course, celebrating baseball, music, and of course, hot dogs. We got to make sure we have that. And there are several exciting projects we'll be recognizing during this year, and some of the most exciting, frankly, in Kansas City. A project, of course, that I'm the most proud of is the Buck O'Neil Education and Research Center. at the site of the old Paseo YMCA, where Andrew Rube Foster established the National Negro League in 1920. The center will allow students and baseball fans to study every aspect of the Negro Leagues and our social history, the type of place we need to make sure that our young people know the greatness that walks among them, the greatness of their ancestors, and the greatness of this community. I also look forward to sharing with Bob over the next year as you all join us at these events. Not just the reason to support the museum financially, but to continue to share the brand of something great in Kansas City. You know, over the last years, I've been asked many times, what's going on, what's great about KC? You talk about FIFA World Cup 2026, sports championships, new investments, our biggest population in the city's history. But to me, what is most exciting is how we cherish our heritage, how we look forward to supporting all of our cultures. And this Black History Month, ladies and gentlemen, how we tell stories that often need to be shared and frankly that all need to know and recognize. Thank you to our board. Thank you to Bob. Thank you to everybody for sharing a story so that my child, that all the children I see here today who I've had the opportunity of meeting, get to know about the greatness that has walked our streets in Kansas City, the greatness not just of the Monarchs, but of Negro Leagues Baseball, and the great tradition of our heritage and Black history in Kansas City and around our country. Congratulations to Bob. Make sure y'all all are donating nonstop over the next year. And more than anything, God bless you and thank you for being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't see Brian from, oh no, there he is. It is now my pleasure. He snuck in, was out there hanging in the back. Our city manager, who has become quite the friend of the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum ever since he moved into this great city. He left the Negro League City, by the way, when he came here, but he came to the best Negro Leagues World Series. But y'all put your hands together and please join me in welcoming City Manager Brian Platt. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, everybody. It's hard to follow the mayor. I know everyone always says that. We're excited in this city for everything that the Negro Leagues Museum has done to this point and the future. This is, and I'll have my Bob Kendrick moment right now. We're here celebrating the 100-year anniversary of the inaugural Negro Leagues World Series, of which our very own Kansas City Monarchs won, which is great. It's great for us. And we're here continuing that tradition, and it's so special. I hear from so many people around the country who think about Kansas City and they think about this place. It's one of the places people want to come to from all over the country and all over the world, and that's special. A lot of cities and a lot of places don't have a gem like this. We're so grateful for everything that you have done, Bob, and your team have done, and the city is 100% supportive of everything moving forward. The vision for the future is phenomenal, the new facility across the street, and we hope that the rest of you, the rest of us, will support the museum, support the activities this year in the best way that we all can. Thank you so much, Bob. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. As you well know, it is extraordinarily important for this museum, and there was no doubt the city has always been a tremendous supporter of this museum, but celebrations like these are really important to have the city there, helping everyone in our city understand the true significance. We can't do it by ourselves. And we need as many foot soldiers out there touting the significance of these milestone moments like this. So we are so grateful to our friends over at the City of Kansas City for their continued support. We are also grateful to our friends over at the Kansas City Royals. And for those of you who may not be aware, I'm going to assume that all the folks who came in to visit this morning are aware that the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum is open free of charge the entire month of February, courtesy of the Kansas City Royals and the Kansas City Royals Foundation. And this is the third consecutive year that the Royals and the Foundation have extended that level of generosity that has opened these doors to thousands of people over the last 3 years, many of them who had not taken the opportunity prior to come and experience, and again, I am biased, the best baseball history museum anywhere in the world. And Josh, I say that with no disrespect to my friends over in Cooperstown, New York, at that hollow hall known as the National Baseball Hall of Fame, but we're so proud of what we've done here, and the mayor is right, we've just scratched the surface. The next wave of growth for this museum will be substantial and monumental, not only for the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, but for this community in particular, historic 18th and Vine, transformative, and for our great city. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome our friend, Mr. Louis Mayes, who is the VP of Community Impact for our Kansas City Royals. Luis, thank you, sir.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks for your incredible leadership of this gym. So I'm honored to be a part of this historic time in Kansas City's history and history of the game of baseball. I grew up in Arlington, Virginia, so right outside of Washington, D.C., and I remember taking field trips to museums right across the river. And we had some incredible museums in our backyard. And some were more interesting than others, I think, and I would go back to those ones that I thought were really cool with my mom. And you know, the ones that I really liked actually were the Air and Space Museum and the National Museum of American History. And on every visit, I felt like I learned new things. I felt like I was transported to a different time. And I learned about our country and our world's history. And it helped me, I think, to connect to our collective past on a much deeper level, which actually instilled in me a lifelong, I think, hunger and curiosity to learn more about others and their experiences and get to know their why. So just like the best museums in DC, the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum tells an incredible story. And it's about American history, it's about baseball, but it's about our struggles and progress and civil rights. The Negro Leagues Baseball Museum is the only baseball museum in the world that's dedicated to bringing this incredible story to life. And it does so, and we are incredibly fortunate to have it here in our backyard. So the Royals are proud partners of the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, and that's why, again, for the third year in a row, we are sponsoring Free February. And just like Bob said, it's an opportunity to have school groups come in and teach from this museum during this month for all Kansas Cityans of all ages to come in and visit. And like Bob said, last year, 14,000 people came, and it triggered a donation of over $120,000 from the Kansas City Royals Foundation to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. And we're hoping for even more this year. So if you haven't come, come on out. Tell people to come. It's an incredible place, as you know. And of course, our partnership is deeper than just Free February. We understand at the Royals just how impactful this history is. And we want our players and our employees to know about it as well. So we bring our draft class here every year to come in, and our employees as well, and returning employees and new employees so they can visit the museum. And one of our flagship programs over at the Urban Youth Academy, so right across the way, our Crown Schools program, which teaches baseball and softball to elementary school kids across the KC Metro. They come here to learn baseball, and we bring them here to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum so that they can also take advantage. And we're looking forward to celebrating, alongside the museum in this incredible 100th anniversary. Negro Leagues game, which is going to be on July 28th versus the Cubs, which is a great matchup that I know that Bob can speak to in terms of the ties that Buck O'Neil had with both the Royals and the Chicago Cubs, as well as our Kansas City Royals Foundation partnership with J.E. Dunn, where for every run scored at home this year, it's going to trigger a $100 donation for the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. That's thanks to J.E. Dunn and our partnership with them. So with that, Bob, thank you. And Kiona, thank you, and to the entire team for the amazing impact that you've made in our community, in our country, and quite frankly, the world, through this museum. And we look forward to continuing our incredible partnership and supporting this museum in the exciting future ahead. Thank you.
And that is a great example of the kinds of partnerships that we hope to extend, particularly through this centennial year of that first World Series and the Monarchs bringing home that crown. We're hoping that our Royals will bring home a crown again this year, but if nothing else, we need you to score a lot of runs. So I better go out and holler at Bobby Witt and the rest of the guys. We got to push some runs across the plate this year because we got a lot riding on it. But we thank you, the Royals, John Sherman, and everyone there with the organization for your continued support and generosity. We could not do what we do without you. And of course, it is also my pleasure. They carry the name, the Kansas City Monarchs. And when Mark Brandmeier, who I've grown to know and become extraordinarily fond of, and everybody there with the American Association version of the Kansas City Monarchs, approached us about this idea. You know, the one thing that I told them then, and I tell the club every year, I go out and give the pep talk to the club every year. If you are going to wear the Kansas City Monarchs name on your chest, you got to win. Yeah, you got to win, and they have been winning since we rebranded the club as the Kansas City Monarchs. 2 world championships, 2 American Association championships. We just barely missed the year prior from getting back to the championship, and we're excited about a new season. But what Mark and those young athletes who are wearing that Monarch uniform, those pinstripes, so proudly have done, they've taken this historic brand and brought it to life. And what we're seeing is scores of young people running around that ballpark, Kim, and they got Kansas City Monarch gear on. And they're learning about the heritage of our game in this community. And we needed to do that because, again, it is important, I think, for any museum, but particularly for a history museum and a cultural institution, is how do you generate and create relevancy? And this partnership with the American Association version of the Kansas City Monarchs is doing just that, and not only here in Kansas City, but as that ball club is traveling throughout the association, people are gaining interest in the history of the Negro Leagues through this particular partnership. So it is my pleasure to welcome my friend, Mr. Mark Brandmeier, here representing our Kansas City Monarchs and that winning tradition.
Well, thank you so much for having us here. We could not be more proud of our partnership with the Negro League Baseball Museum. As Bob said, we have won 2 out of the last 3 championships as the Kansas City Monarchs. It's so fun to represent Kansas City and Kansas City, Kansas, in our baseball efforts. When Bob and I first talked about this, and Bob came out, we not only talked about, how important, that brand is, but also that we're standing on the shoulders, all of us here, of these guys that went before us. We wouldn't be in this situation in a museum like this if those guys back in the 1920s hadn't stood up and made a stand like they did, and that Kansas City embraced all those people. And that we allowed this to happen, and so it's so important what Bob's doing here. We're so excited to celebrate the 100th anniversary. We'll keep our fingers crossed this year for another championship. We're going to work hard for it. We endeavor to have a family-friendly environment out there at Legends Field, and really honor the past, but embrace the future too, because we got a lot of young players that are really trying to make their way to a major league team. They'd love to be on a roster like the Royals. So they're working that direction, and we appreciate everybody's support. We do a lot of things out there at the stadium. We have an HBCU night. That's important to honor, HBCU and the historic black colleges. But we all have all kinds of fun themed events and great for families. I think I saw somebody, a little kid with a Monarchs jersey on. The fact that you get to see that in Kansas City and you bring that forward, that's important. And any contribution we can make with our partnership. We're excited about that. So our home opener is May 16th, so we invite all of Kansas City to come out and celebrate the Kansas City Monarchs. Bob's going to be out there. He's going to give another one of his opening season pep talks. And it's important. And so we invite all you guys to come out and support us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Real quickly, before we unveil, we created to commemorate this 100th anniversary a very special logo. But before I do that, there's someone else I want to thank as well. Andy Rieger is over on this side of the room. Andy and Rieger Distillery, as some of you may know, and if you don't, it is right here on the table, center of the table, has created this beautiful limited edition commemorative set of Negro Leagues inspired spirits. And I am perhaps the greatest alcohol pitchman for anybody who doesn't even drink, but I can tell you this set is very important. And I actually sat down with Andy recently and had a little sip of the Monarchs bourbon, and the set is, as you can see, is absolutely gorgeous. There is a limited window to get them. I would suggest that you go on to Jay Rieger's website and order that set. We've got an event at the distillery tonight to officially release this limited edition commemorative set of spirits that truly does celebrate the winning spirit of what the Negro Leagues represented both on and off the field. And what you'll see on the board here is just a handful of the companies who are already aligning with the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum on this 100th anniversary celebration. Don't worry, there's plenty of room on board for those who want to get involved with this celebration. Ginger over at Russell Stover's, I had a great opportunity to go there yesterday and talk to the Russell Stover team about the history of the Negro Leagues. We are working on something, should I say, sweet, to represent the Kansas City Monarchs. Topsy's popcorn, Guy's potato chips, and of course our friends over at Boulevard Brewing Company, who again has produced a couple of legendary commemorative ales for us, and we've got something brewing again that you'll hear more about later this year. That is just an example. We hope to get as many as 1,000 companies joining us in this effort. They are here locally. There will be an opportunity for everybody to join us in this effort, because while we're getting ready to go out and launch a capital campaign to build a new Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, it is also important that we sustain this current Negro Leagues Museum while that is going on. Celebrations like this will do just that. So Mayor, Louise, Mark, if you guys could join me here around the drape board, we'll have the unveiling of the official commemorative logo representing the 100th anniversary of the inaugural Negro League World Series. And once we unveil it, I'll tell you a little bit more about the logo and the mastermind behind the creation of the emblem that will represent this milestone occasion. What is going to be a significant year-long celebration for us. There's a board over here that highlights just a few of those events. I want to thank my friend Josh Chavis, and Josh is here with us. Josh has been the creator of a number of emblems that represent Negro Leagues history, most recently the 100th anniversary of the birth of the Negro Leagues. He worked with us to create that, and he created this beautiful representation of the centennial of the first World Series. Josh, would you please stand up, please? Y'all thank Josh Chavis for his continued creativity and support of the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. We know the mayor has to get out. He's got official business to take care of, but otherwise, that concludes the press conference portion of this event. But certainly for those of you who want to have one-on-ones or anything of that nature, we can hang for you and have that. But if you got any questions that you may want to ask of me before we conclude, I'm happy to address any questions that you might have also. Anybody got in the audience or media members have any questions? Well, with there being no, I see one question back there. Yes, ma'am. There have been a number of iterations on just how the Monarchs got the name, the Kansas City Monarchs, but most recognize legendary Negro leaguer John Donaldson. John Donaldson, if you don't know that name, Google that name. He's in this museum, but he was an early era Negro Leagues player from Glasgow, Missouri. Should be in the National Baseball Hall of Fame. He and James Leslie Wilkinson were basically adjoined at the hip. And Donaldson had pitched a lot for Wilkie's All Nations team. And if that's the first time you've heard that name, the All Nations team, I describe as a homogeneous group of athletes made up of black, white, Native American, Asian, all colors coming together to play. Well, when Wilkie was considering bringing a new team into the fold as part of the inaugural Negro Leagues, Donaldson recommended the name the Kansas City Monarchs. And it's interesting that our city's sports teams seem to carry that majestic theme throughout, whether it is the Monarchs, the Kansas City Royals, the Kansas City Chiefs, and even the old Kansas City Kings of yesteryear. There was always this level of majesty associated with our sports teams. And of course, it all begins with the great Kansas City Monarchs. Any other questions? Well, y'all, thank you all so much for coming out to be part of the celebration. Stay tuned for a season of great events, great promotional opportunities. There are all sorts of ways in which you can support this celebration, and we will share more about that in the days to come. But please thank our partners who are part of this board up here, and encourage those to join us in this milestone commemoration of the Kansas City Monarchs winning the inaugural Negro Leagues World Series. Y'all have a wonderful day. Thank you all so much.